But as citizens, we are subject to the king.
Yeah. Like we say every day, let's just the minute we come in the room, let's push play,
We should.
because
Yeah,
we always have, that was a good 15, 20 minutes of
good.
good chatting before we even get into the meat of the thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was good stuff, but maybe a little too deep.
maybe
Someday we'll dive. We'll dive off the high dive.
we ought to do it wouldn't go along with Cash Calf, but maybe, on what we should do with all of the conspiracy theory debunking stuff,
yeah.
like there's some good info out there about that stuff. So
yeah, and even if none of it's true, just looking at the opposition is important.
Yeah.
So atoms exist. Do they? Just look, like really looking into it, just questioning it. That's all I'm saying. Like, yeah, atoms exist, and there's protons and electrons and neutrons and electrons. But are there?
Maybe that's what we were taught.
Yeah. So it's just important to question it. That's it. I would like to see an electron microscope and look in there and actually see one myself.
Yeah, it would be cool.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of things like that.
It is. It is interesting.
Yeah.
Like just why not question everything? And it's so. Did you see that? And I haven't looked into this enough to know, but I was scrolling a feed and saw like there's now a Ministry of Disinformation or something that is coming out.
Ministry of Truth, I believe, is what it's called. And I mean,
isn't that actually like, okay, like even going back to Trump, okay, you named the Space Force the Space Force.
Yep.
And now we're getting a Ministry of Truth. Like,
yeah,
is this some kind of like reality TV show or something?
Yeah, it's weird. Maybe very political, but every dictatorship has had a Ministry of Truth. And if you're having these ministries of truth at the same time that they're disarming the population, it's really scary.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're left, right, black, green, white, liberal, conservative, doesn't matter. If the government is trying to disarm the populace at the same time they're trying to tell you what's true and what's not, we should be questioning everything.
Right. Well, and I mean, people are like, oh, well, that's great because those views are what my views are. And so there's no opposition to my views. They will come for you next. Like you might be on the right side of it today, but you should be upholding the rights of your opposition, because at some point the pendulum swings the other direction.
Yeah.
And so this whole thing of even having sides to begin with is bizarre as far as that kind of stuff goes. And then just that people fight so hard for what their side is kind of crazy. But sides are crazy. Like you could even say sides in like business versus job, like business owner versus employee. It's like, no, there's always middle grounds, and we should be looking at what's best, like what's best for us, what's best for the country, what's best for humanity. And it's okay if I believe something that you don't believe. Like I don't want to vote for someone just because they're Democrat or just because they're Republican or whatever. I want to vote because they align with my personal views. That's what's important. This whole, that Ministry of Truth thing, that's just scary. That's just scary. Well, and I think, wasn't it Thomas Jefferson that said, question even the very existence of God for, if there be a God, surely he values honest questioning over blind following or something like that, you know?
Absolutely.
Why not?
Yeah.
And I think the answer is a lot of times the other side doesn't want the truth to come out, because it's pretty obvious to see some of this stuff. I saw do you follow Forbes on any, like on Facebook or anything?
No.
Which is crazy. Like they used to be a business magazine, right? That's kind of why I would follow them, for business articles and stuff. They are totally political.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because even the Forbes, who's the guy that started Forbes? Like Mike Forbes? I have no idea. But maybe Steve Forbes. I think Steve Forbes, pretty conservative guy, really.
Yeah.
Politically, and like it's completely off the rails. Going liberal ideology and whatever. Like I saw an article. And some, like, you look at the article headings and you're like, okay, do we have like fifth graders writing this stuff? It's just ridiculous. But the other day, it was talking about, I guess there's some lawmakers that are doing something, like trying to introduce some bills to look into research on ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine or something having to do with that, to shed some light on that and actually bring some truth out around that. So this article's basically like showing how dumb those people are or whatever for introducing a bill or looking into a congressional hearing or whatever on this stuff. Well, the picture that they use for it is ivermectin, a box of ivermectin, and it's the horse paste kind.
Yep.
So it has a horse on the box, and it has like apple flavored paste.
Yeah.
For a horse.
It's all propaganda.
They totally, let's not put any pills on there that have been used for human consumption for decades.
Yep.
Let's put the horse paste up there to make it look as crazy as we possibly can.
That a Nobel Prize was won over.
Right.
That has saved the lives of billions of people.
That's actually an anti-malaria drug, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's put the horse thing up there because that's what's going to move our agenda forward the most.
Yeah.
And so then all the comments are like, yeah, these politicians are idiots wanting to look into this. And what a bunch of dumb people taking horse paste and all this stuff. And it's like, how, for as much information and as much discussion against that has been out there, how do people still think that it's just a horse paste? I mean, I don't know.
Well, I think it comes down to, in a way, maybe it's roundabout, but the education system. From the very beginning, we're taught, you just listen to your teachers. You just listen and do what your teachers say, and what your teachers say is gospel. And that's just how it is. And then, they go through high school and they get to college and they do whatever their college professors say. And then they go to an airport one time and the CNN's on and they've been indoctrinated to CNN the whole time. So whatever CNN says is okay. And well, Forbes magazine, that's an important prominent magazine. So whatever Forbes says, that's true too. And all of a sudden, the Ministry of Truth can kind of push whatever agenda they want, whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's important that people get out and they listen to podcasts and they read alternative articles and history, like read history, get back in the books and not the textbooks. Like the textbooks they're catered to what they want to be pushing at the time. The 1619 Project is a great example of that. We've been taught forever to judge a man by the content of his character, not the color of his skin, which I completely agree with. And then you have the 1619 Project coming out, which says to judge people through the color of their skin. And if you're white, then you need to look at humanity in one way, and if you're black, you need to look at humanity in a different way. And it's just nuts.
It is. Yeah. It completely, and it seems like it comes from the same people too. They say one thing for a few years and then they completely flip it around, and do something else. Like it's just bizarre. It's weird to me how people don't see through that so easily.
Yeah. They hail Elon Musk for being the pioneer of electric cars, and then once he buys Twitter, he's a villain.
Yeah. Yep.
It's just weird.
Well, same with like taxing Disney.
Yeah.
Big corporations should pay their fair share. Okay, we're going to tax Disney. Wait a minute, we don't want you to do that.
Yeah.
Like there's so much hypocrisy. It's just astounding that as a population we can't see that and be like, to heck with this. Like we're going to change this. We're going to start voting differently. We're going to start, we even have here in Idaho, we have a pretty ingrained political system, leaders that have been in there forever. Like our congressmen have been in there forever. I even had a neighbor that's pretty big into politics, was having one of our representatives out to his house, like, I think it was yesterday, maybe for lunch, like a meet and greet thing for this. I think he's in the House of Representatives. I don't think he's a senator. I guess I don't know. I had to know that a little bit, but it's Mike Simpson.
Oh yeah.
Right. He's a representative. So, and I'm like, the guy's been in there for, maybe he's done some good things. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to argue against that, but the guy's been in there for forever. Like ever since I was a little kid. Yep. I can remember his name being on political signs and stuff.
Yeah.
And so what's the harm in voting in some of these people that are maybe younger? That's the other weird thing. I don't see why we think it has to be somebody that's 60 or 70 years old to go and make those decisions. Especially now, we have 20 and 30-year-olds that are running multi-billion-dollar companies, starting multi-billion-dollar companies and running them. Yet we think that they're unfit to run for public office and make some of these kinds of decisions. It'd probably be the best thing we ever did if there were some younger people in there making good decisions.
Yeah.
But anyway,
no, it's
agree. Interesting.
They call them rhinos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the rhino, and they're all over. And it's pretty deeply ingrained in Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird because you just think of Idaho as like the last stand of freedom. That in Texas, but Texas is getting overrun now, and
so are we.
Idaho. So
yeah,
it's interesting.
It is interesting to see what's going on. So,
yeah. But with all of that, business. So it's important because with all of these political changes that are coming, there are things that are affecting our lives, and we need to be ahead of the curve. We've got to know how to get out, and I honestly think if we're going to rely on wages, we're going to be living an extremely low income life.
Mm-hmm.
You might be making $100,000 a year, but that doesn't matter when an apple is $10.
Mm-hmm.
When gasoline is $10 a gallon. I believe that we have to get ahead of the curve by starting a side hustle, by starting a business. It's what runs the economy. It always has, but here soon it's going to become a necessity.
Yeah. And we've talked in the past about the freedom that comes along with that too. There's limited things that we can do to change that system.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that we can do personally to work within that system and find the ways that benefit us the best, whether that's keeping up with and surpassing inflation, or finding, ways to reinvest our profits to build our companies and stuff like that. Like there's things that we can do individually to insulate ourselves from some of those decisions. Now it gets to a point where it makes it harder and harder to do that, but we still have a country where we're able to function as entrepreneurs, as business people and everything else. And that gives us freedom from some of those other constraints. We've even talked about being in a job. You might be censored, or not necessarily censored, but you might be a little bit hesitant on expressing some views on some issues or something like that because of repercussions that could happen. So if you're able to take yourself out of those kind of situations, you have less people that are having the control over you. Start your own business, start a side hustle. You're less dependent on them for income or fulfillment or whatever it is. Then you're able to be effective in that and affect more change too. So
and you can affect change in the direction that you want it to be changed. And passion. It's just sometimes there are a lot of people that are extremely unhappy in their job because there's just no passion there.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow we've got to figure out how to help all of humanity find their passion and move towards it. And I believe that free market, people find their place and they find their passion if they're allowed to. But we're kind of, back to the beginning, we're kind of just not ever taught that. Like, we are taught you can become whatever you want to be. You can do whatever you want to do. But I think that's very quickly conditioned out of us. We might say it, but we never truly believe it. And that might be the circumstances that we're born into. It might be school. It might be many factors. But really, business is where you can become anything you want, and you can do it at the scale that you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It can be as big as you want or as small as you want. You can put an hour a week into it, or you can put 100 hours a week into it. But that passion, that's I think that's what the world needs right now. Right now, before we hit record, we were talking about a lot of just current events. It's almost like people are waiting for that next current event so they have something to talk about.
Yeah.
It'd be really cool if people were just talking about what they're passionate about.
Yeah.
And regardless of the crap that's happening over here, hey, no worries. Come on my podcast and listen to me talk about what I love. Like that would change. Oh man, I'd love that world.
Well, and I feel like we're trying to do that, right? I mean,
exactly.
we have projects and businesses we're working on together. Outside of that, we're working on things that, just those things that are exciting to us.
Yeah.
And granted, we both like to kind of get in the muck and know what's going on too. It doesn't shelter us completely from that.
For sure.
But I want to be involved in that. And I want to find ways that I can change that system for the better, or change, not necessarily that system even. I mean, that would be wonderful, but I'm not like even thinking that bigger long term, just even affect and change within my family or around my circle, my circle of friends and circle of influence, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you get a small amount of people doing that, and it can affect a huge change. And I do think that we're seeing some of that. I think there's a lot of people that are going, wait a minute, this isn't what I signed up for. I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah.
And whether that's starting a business or speaking out on, current events or whatever, I think that there is a big awakening maybe, to a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And that momentum just needs to build. It's the snowball effect. Snowballs start small and you roll it down a hill. And then by the time it's to the bottom, it's this big old thing that can take out whatever.
Yeah.
It's just the snowball effect. We have to be loud, but not too loud. We have to push, but not shove, and that's good. And that's with everything. There's political undertones here, but, politically, but also just in our lives and in our businesses and with our friends. And we've got to surround ourselves with like-minded individuals. Like that's in business and in life, you're the sum of the people that you hang out with. And so finding that group, sticking to them, being what's the right word? Loyal, loyalty within there, and then growing together.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's, you say when you're saying that, not trying to be political or anything.
Yeah.
Because we're not. Like, we have a set of values here that we adhere to. I don't really care what those values what category they fall into. Like, that's my values, like being honest, creating value, being loyal, like you're talking about, I have a code of morality that I believe in, and those kind of things. But it's just so weird that while we're talking about those list of virtues and principles that we believe in and try to live in our life, we have to say, not trying to be too political here.
Yeah, very true.
But we do, and not that because it feels that way. It's like, okay, if you have this list of stuff, then you fall into a certain political category, and somebody that has a different set of beliefs is in a different political category. Like, that's exactly what the system wants.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, hey, these are my values and principles. If you want to hang out with me, you're more than welcome to come along and hang out. Like, that's it, kind of.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of businesses taking political stances.
Yeah.
As far as, the black square that came along for a little while. And if you didn't post a black square, then you're a racist, sort of thing. And so businesses felt obligated. They're like, well, we have to do this now. It's like, no. You be your business. Like, you be your passion. And if your passion ends up being that, then whatever, that's fine. But like, I can go, we'll use Walmart. I should be able to go to Walmart and buy stuff without thinking, are they right or left? You know, no, to just be your business. It's all good.
Yeah.
And then life is, we should just love each other.
But also with the caveat that if you are like, I think it gets to a point to where, you know, certain businesses shouldn't discriminate in that way. Like, do they call like, I think we talked about this. Isn't there like a category where like common carriers or something like that, where it's like phone companies and all these different things can't really discriminate whether they're going to provide services or not to, and there was,
yeah, I don't remember talking about that.
There was a company recently, I'm trying to think, but they were trying to, people were trying to claim basically that, hey, well, you're like a common carrier. You can't discriminate against us because of our beliefs, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
I think there's some laws that have to do with that kind of thing, which makes sense.
For sure.
But also, like, kind of outside of that sphere, I do think businesses have the right to do whatever they want.
Yes, totally agree.
But then I have the right to vote with my dollars.
Yeah.
And the government shouldn't intervene and close down certain stores and other stores. It should be a level playing field across the spectrum to where I can vote with my dollars on who I want to support.
Yeah.
You know, and we've seen a huge discrepancy in that, where certain businesses are maybe shut down or regulated and other businesses aren't, and it kind of funnels people one way or the other.
Yeah.
So,
well, and back to small group and what people can do, you know, look at Netflix right now. Netflix is failing. And they were trying to cater to a fairly small group of people, being kind of that woke company. Now all of a sudden people are like, I'm out. You know, they're pulling their money out of Netflix stock. They're canceling their memberships. And it's like, hey, maybe at some point that political agenda that you thought was going to help you, it's going to hurt you. Maybe stay apolitical, but depending on what the business wants to do, stay in your lane of providing DVDs for people.
Yeah.
And maybe you would have been just fine. But instead, you tried to go political, and like Trump said, everything woke goes to crap. So
is it go woke, go broke?
Yeah, go woke, go broke. Just
and I don't think that most people even care if there's that you could have access to whatever view it is on your own terms. You know, if there's if you want to have subtitles in it, or not subtitles, but you want to have different categories, and there's categories that I don't agree with on there and that I'm not going to click on, but somebody else is welcome to, I don't really have a problem with that. It's when they start pushing, and it's everywhere, you know, and I think that's the problem that Netflix is probably running into. But if you want to start a business,
absolutely,
and that's all you cater to is that one small niche. We talk about niches a lot on here. There's probably a lot of companies that cater, well, we know there is, that cater to really small niches, and they're very successful.
Yeah.
And if that's what you want to do, that's great. Like, that's fine.
In this case, Netflix got really big and they tried to niche and they went into the wrong one.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, which is kind of interesting. There is, big companies have a hard time hitting small niches, right? And so
which is why
there's opportunities. Yes, there's tons of opportunity there. I hadn't thought about that, but that's a perfect example.
Yeah, which they're popping up. You know, there's there are alternatives to Netflix which are popping up, and they're small, but they hit that niche group, and then all of a sudden they're doing pretty well. You know, they might not be market cap of Netflix, but if a lot of people are moving away from Netflix and then joining these niche groups, those niche groups together, it's going to equal the market cap of Netflix. And if we've learned anything from big business, there's a book called Good to Great. He talks about these businesses, or maybe the book was called Too Big to Fail. It was something along those lines.
I think both of those are book titles, right?
Yeah,
Good to Great is, and Too Big to Fail.
He ended up writing like a counter book to the first one, because the ones that he thought were too big to fail failed. They just started to make these very poor decisions, and it trickled. And, you know, when you're in a very small business, small and large decisions can how to word this the best. If you're in a small business, you can make some pretty bad decisions and still be okay because you're small enough. But once you start to
you can
pivot,
adjust. Yeah, exactly. Pretty quickly.
Yeah, you can pivot, you can adjust. But when you get really big and some of those decisions start to affect shareholders and then majority shareholders, it can die pretty fast. And you saw Twitter. That's not very long of going. Jack Dorsey, who is CEO and creator, correct, for a long time, goes, hey, I'm gonna set this aside. They go to a very politically motivated CEO, and within months, he's out, and the company is now privately held by an individual. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, you just got to have $44 billion laying around.
No, which is funny because it wasn't his $44 billion.
No, he's out raising capital for it.
Yeah.
But he has the back, I mean, guys are, but a good lesson there. You don't have to have the $44 billion. You just have to have an idea and know how to run the thing and get it going and get people to believe in it with you.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And he's got some pretty good ideas with it. I mean, first thing they want to do is get rid of all bots. So any account that's not real, just get rid of it. Authenticate human beings. Okay, so I use Twitter. I'm authenticated. I'm a real human. That makes sense. To use Twitter, you have to be a human.
Yeah.
Kind of makes sense.
Devil's advocate on that, though. Like, people, can I use stuff anonymously still?
Totally agree. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think
there is a lot of garbage around bots and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, I think we should absolutely be able to use it anonymously. And I don't want regulated, although there are many websites I choose not to go to. I don't want the Ministry of Truth telling me what ones I can and cannot go to.
Right.
Which I think this opens up so many. We keep using the word niche and niche, whatever it is. It opens up so many avenues. You can go out and start your own web browser. There's that Brave web browser.
That's what I use.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. There's DuckDuckGo. There's people who are like, no, DuckDuckGo is compromised.
Yeah.
So, then there's other people that are coming up with the other ones, and there's blockchain based. And
I was thinking about niches. Yeah. I was thinking about the Netflix example you were talking about. So, I mean, think about, like, I go on Netflix and I don't even, like, my wife's like, hey, what do you want to watch? Pick something, and I'm like, there's not even really anything on here I want to watch.
Yep.
And I'm going to watch pretty much the same, myself. Now, like, me and my wife might watch a different movie or something like that. But myself, I'm going to watch pretty much the same genre of movies on any of these platforms. So say that you are a diehard John Wayne fan, and now Netflix is going under. So you're like, okay, well, I'm going to cater to all the John Wayne fans out there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go and I'm going to upload every John Wayne fan that I possibly can to my website. They can pay $1 a month to stream all of these, so now you have johnwaynemovies.com. You could do warmovies.com. You could do romance movies, you know what I mean? And so now you're the expert around war movies, and people are paying you specifically for a subscription to every war movie on the planet that you can get your hands on.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
there's a massive niche opportunity right there, and it is a benefit for me, the customer, because I know that, well, I'm just going to pay for what I want. I just want war movies. I don't want all the other crap that's on Netflix. And my wife can say, well, I just want romance movies or whatever. I don't want all the other crap that's on Netflix. And so you're getting very specialized service.
Yep.
Probably at a cheaper price. There's huge opportunities, even though we think these big businesses have it covered and there's no way to compete. That's true. There's probably no way to compete on a massive scale like they are.
Yeah.
But there's no way that they can compete with individualized niche market people that have a passion for something.
Yeah.
They just can't get there.
Mm-mm.
They miss it all.
No, and I love how you said earlier that you can vote with your dollars. Mm-hmm. That's really what it's all about. as far as free market capitalism, just don't tell me where to put my dollar. And then my dollar is going to curb that flow of businesses that add or take away value. Yep. And that's really when it comes down to it. Netflix just doesn't give me value anymore. It used to. And then I went through a ton of series that we watched, and then we kind of started not watching as much. And now we do the same thing. We're like, hey, should we watch something? Yeah. You hop on Netflix. You're like, there's nothing on here. That's not giving me value anymore.
Yep.
So what do you want to do? I don't know. Let's play a board game.
Yeah.
There's more value in, I guarantee there's more value in playing Monopoly and learning life skills from that than there is watching Netflix.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're just kind of, and it's stupid because we probably, I don't know that we've canceled Netflix yet. It's like, that's such a great business model to do subscriptions, because I guarantee you I haven't got my money's worth out of it.
No, I agree.
And I forget about it every month and everything. You know, I think we probably pay for like 3, you know, like Hulu or something will have a series that we want. So we'll pay for it and then forget to cancel after we get done watching the series or whatever, you know, I mean.
Yep. No, I agree.
It's a great business
model.
And
if you did all of them, if you're doing Hulu and HBO and Showtime and Netflix and this and that,
Disney and
you're hundreds of dollars a month into that. And so I actually said that to someone the other day. I was like, well, then you might as well get satellite. And they're like, well, no,
there's nothing on
because
satellite.
Then there's
either.
Nothing on satellite, and you can't just go watch it anytime you want.
So that's where warmovie.com comes in for $2 a month.
Yep.
johnwayne.com for $2 a month, and comedy for $2 a month, and romance for $2 a month. You get every movie in all of those. Maybe you can't access every movie. I'm sure there's copyright stuff and whatever, but you get a dedicated channel of those kind of shows for $8 a month. There you go. There you go. Somebody out there, there's a business for you right there.
Yeah. Go start. Whatever happened to VidAngel?
I think you can still use it.
Okay.
We used it on something, but it was kind of clunky a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
But you would log into VidAngel, and then you would log in. Maybe this is how it always worked. I don't know. And then you would log into like an account that had what you wanted to watch, and it would kind of run it through there, but you could select what you wanted it to edit out or whatever.
Okay.
But it was kind of interesting. It was, they've obviously changed their business model from what it used to be, I think.
Yeah.
But I think it's a lot better.
We invested in it when it was kind of going out.
Oh, really?
I wonder.
Well, maybe it did. Maybe we used it.
No, I think you're right.
Within the last year.
Yeah, I think it is still in. I got an email, something about the shares. They probably aren't worth anything.
Do you still have that investment?
Well, it was, I don't know. I'll have to check into that.
Yeah.
Ooh, maybe I'm rich.
Maybe so. You're like, yeah. Little did you know, like those people in crypto that like
poor people,
or they forget about it and then they find their keys and passwords and whatever and get back on there, and it's like $8 million now.
I was listening to one the other day. He's a pretty prominent guy. Oh, it was Grant Cardone, and he was paid for a speaking engagement in Bitcoin, and I think it's worth, I think he said $3 million. Which
really?
He threw out like, I don't know. I've got a little bit of Bitcoin. It was like $3 million or something.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
But to him, he's like, well, I'll just hold on to it and see what happens.
And back then it probably was a few $100, and now it's grown to that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is interesting. He's fun to follow.
Yeah.
Just to kind of hear his background, drug addiction, that sort of thing. And then essentially just changed his addiction. He's still a very addictive personality. It's just now he's addicted to real estate.
Yeah, and success.
Yeah.
He is good. I like his attitude about just getting after it, you know, and just, which I think is so key. I think that's the biggest hang up is people think, okay, I've got this idea. Now, how can I move it forward? You know, some of those action steps. And I've actually been thinking about that this last week because, like, I feel like it's interesting being an entrepreneur. I was going to ask you if you feel the same way. Like, sometimes it's like just crazy busy, like for whatever reason, for for weeks or months or days or whatever, maybe even days of the week, and it's like you can barely fit everything in it, and you're just, scrambling to get everything done. And then other times it's like mundane steps. Like this last week, I've got caught up on bills and accounting stuff and sat in front of a computer just doing kind of mundane stuff, and it's like, well, this sucks. I had to be out doing something important. But and I think it's easy to get in that, people get in that and they're like, well, I feel like I had to be doing, kind of that restless thing. And then the other extreme is, well, I'm kind of tired. I've been doing a whole bunch. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's the action steps of it. All of it is important. Even the stuff that seems mundane and simple and easy. But once you get past the initial part of, getting the business off the ground and everything else, you kind of get into a mode where things are mundane and simple tasks and that kind of stuff. And it might almost feel like you're not growing or moving forward. And I don't know, do you ever feel that way?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it can be a big holdup for people. They've hit a certain level of, you could call it success. And then they go, wait, this isn't exactly what I wanted. And maybe what we were chasing isn't quite the right thing. And I'm not answering the question correctly. What I said, I think, is true. But yes, I fall into it, and it goes in cycles. But what will happen, and I think it goes really well with the book, The E-Myth.
Mm-hmm.
You're the technician, the manager, and the business owner, the entrepreneur. And we're in that technician role, and then we move to the manager role, and then we move to the entrepreneur role. But then things aren't quite going how we want them to go in the managerial and the technical world. So we kind of move ourselves back over it. And the key is to find what you love as being a technician and do it. And then find what you love as being a manager and do it. And then delegate everything else. Be the idea man that's really good at delegation. So, some of that accounting stuff, some of that bookwork stuff, if you like it, then
I hate it.
Yep.
I absolutely hate it.
Then delegate it. And that's, and there's somebody, whether they're local or outsourced, it's someone wants to do it.
Yeah. And we do have somebody that does some of it.
Yeah.
But I think that it's, and even, at the beginning, you kind of have to do those things.
And I think it's
you just kind of have to. Yeah, that's true too. Knowing how to do it. So you know how to direct people when you're delegating that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I talked to someone the other day who said that they're missing $80,000 out of their business.
That better be a really big business doing lots of cash flow or something, because that's, to me, like it's like, holy, like it would be no problem to find that, because.
And that's what I asked.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so is this an invoicing issue? Is it possible that someone embezzled that? Like, where does this all go? And, that's where I think in the beginning, and these are actually, they're great people that run a great business. I'm sure they're going to figure it all out.
Right.
But
it's probably just an oversight, and it's like, oh yeah, like that's what it is.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's not a big deal.
But if you've never been in that role, and then all of a sudden someone tells you that you have an $80,000 discrepancy, it's going to be very difficult to go back and go, hey, who can I find, or how can I go find that? So I think it's really important in business. Maybe later on when we're really good and we can just kind of start something big with managers in the beginning. But from the cash calf standpoint, do everything.
Yeah.
And then as you find out what you do and do not like to do, delegate it. And find someone. I think the other important thing is finding that person that when you delegate it, they're so passionate about it. Like that bookwork is just, they love it. They can't wait to sit down and do it. Or they love the result or the outcome. Like, I talk about sometimes we have the rock climbing gym, and I don't really rock climb that much. I'm not super passionate about rock climbing itself, but I'm very passionate about seeing people completely change their lives because they've never climbed a wall and then all of a sudden they're 60 feet in the air, or that becomes their new workout routine, or they find their spouse here, or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's what makes me excited and passionate. But I don't set the routes. I don't change the rock climbing holds up. We found people that are absolutely passionate about that.
Yeah.
And I think
I've seen your people out here, and they just like have all that stuff spread out, and they're just like
it's an art.
Figuring it out. Like, it is cool to see.
Yeah.
But I do think it would drive me crazy. It's like putting a puzzle together, kind of.
Exactly. And they are, and they can't wait to put that puzzle together. So it's something that I don't get, that I don't understand, but I know that it's important, and they love it.
Mm-hmm.
So we find the right people to do it. And then the end result is that someone's here and they're climbing a route that happens to be art that values exchange. It's just really interesting.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the key. And from an entrepreneurial standpoint, it's all ups and downs.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have weeks that you don't think you can get anything done. And then you're going to have other weeks where everything is done. Maybe it's time to grow.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's it too, is like, okay, if you're, and it probably depends on the kind of business. Like, there's some businesses that, you're planning a big project, and that planning stage takes a ton of time or whatever to kind of get everything sorted out. Well, then once you get past the planning stage and you have, say, people hired to do a lot of the tasks, well, you're going to find yourself in that role of, wait a minute, I just went from being super busy to I'm not doing anything, or I drive around and I manage these people doing the work, kind of thing,
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to understand that. Another thing could be have outlets, or maybe another project that you can be focusing on during that time, which is kind of where I'm at right now, is like finding other things to not feel like I'm going stir crazy, which is a good thing. But I think too, it's important for people to understand that there is a lot of mundane, simple tasks that go on behind the scenes that business owners are doing.
Yeah.
Like I look at Grant Cardone, for example, since we're talking about him, real estate deal, and you look on social media, and it's like, holy smokes, all this guy does is negotiate deals.
Yeah.
Which is probably true, to me, that's the fun part of real estate, is negotiating deals, looking at new possibilities, all of these kind of things. And so you follow somebody like a Grant Cardone that is expressing that on their social media. Well, it looks like that's all they're doing nonstop all the time. Well, probably what's really going on is they're negotiating on maybe a dozen deals a year, maybe less. I don't know. And that's just the highlight reel.
Yeah.
And actually, day to day, there is some mundane, simple things going on that aren't the big, exciting things. Flying, I don't know. With him, he's got enough stuff going on too. He's always doing, conferences and traveling around and stuff. Like, he's got a lot of cool stuff going on. But if you're a lot smaller than that, or just starting out, there's going to be some times where you're wondering, am I doing anything here, kind of thing. And you've got to kind of be a little bit patient there too, I feel like.
Yeah.
So
I totally agree.
Anyway,
and
it's just, we talk about action a lot. And I think it's important to understand that action doesn't mean these big, huge things, these big, huge, exciting things all the time.
For sure.
It's going to be some of that with a lot of simple, mundane, easy, not necessarily easy, but just stuff that you're gonna have to grind through along the way, like phone calls.
Yeah.
Like, I'll have days where I do nothing but talk on the phone and feel like I got to the end. I got no answers at the end of the day that I needed.
Yeah.
But I had to make all of those phone calls. Like, I had to talk to all those people. And even though I didn't do any physical work or come up with anything new, that's still work. Like, it still had to be done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it is a complete mindset shift. I mean, if we're going from a job to entrepreneurship, your time is valued completely differently. I'll do the same thing. I'll go through a day and I get to the end, I'm like, Kira, I didn't do anything today.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I did a thing. But then you start to go through and you're like, well, I talked to customers for 3 hours here, and I was over here talking to a contractor, and then I drove around because I was looking at this property. And, yeah, you were doing something. It's just valued very differently.
Yeah.
And Kira lately has been saying, she's like, I always have to be doing something, whether it's productive or not. So she's seeing that as a fault. And maybe like it could be, some of our strengths are also our faults. Well, she's really good at doing things. Sometimes though, we need to sit back and go, hey, I was successful in this part of my life. I can relax.
Yeah.
It's okay to relax.
Yeah.
Something that entrepreneurs don't do is sit back and relax. You go to watch that Netflix movie and it's like, well, I'm editing this book, or, I'm going to just do this. No, like play that game with your kids. Sit down and actually watch the romance movie with your wife. It might get you lucky later. So
yeah,
it's important. I maybe that's part of this, is some of our biggest strengths are part of also our biggest weaknesses. We kind of chatted about how we were going to talk about simple things that are done during the day and how that can really turn into big things. That was the biggest when I was working a full-time job and doing side businesses. I would just, and this was, it helped that I worked at the fire station, and I had, because it was, 2 days on, 4 days off. It also helped that after a certain time of day, you could kind of go off and do your own thing. And I tried to make a very solid line on like, hey, while I'm there getting paid by the taxpayer, I'm not going to do any work, even if it's after 5 o'clock and that sort of thing. But every day I would try to do 4 or 5 things that just had something to do with the business, so and that might be where someone's at right now. They're like, I've got a side business, but I don't know how to take it to the next level. I don't know how to do this or that. Just do a few things in a day that have something to do with that business. It could be something small. It could be tweeting about it, tweeting about it. It could be, some Instagram post. It could be just calling up a customer and saying, hey, just wanted to say thanks and hope you're having a good day. Like something.
Yeah.
Those little things start to add up.
Yeah, they do. Well, and that's and I think too, find a way to keep track of those. And that's what one thing I started doing, like I'll, in my notes, instead of having a to-do list, I just put actions. Yeah. My actions list, and I'll like put the date, and I don't ever delete them. I can go back and see what my actions were a year ago, or whatever, which is kind of annoying, but it's kind of, that's cool. It's kind of cool to look back and say, oh, like I was doing that task a year ago, like that's nothing now, or you know what I mean? Like you can kind of see your growth through that. But it's interesting too, like most of the time, and I don't do it probably every little thing, but I try to put a lot of stuff in there, even if it's as simple as like turning in an application or calling this person or whatever. Like I'll try to put all that stuff in there. Number one, just so I remember it, it's just kind of, it is a to-do list, but I put actions on there because instead of having to do them, then I get to show myself, hey, I am taking action, instead of like a drag, it's an action that I'm taking to move forward. But it's interesting. I'll get done with a day, or every few days I'll go in there and look at that and be like, man, I just haven't gotten anything done the last few days, kind of feel that way. Well, then you get going through your list and it's like, oh yeah, well, I did that. Check that off. Oh yeah, I did that. I checked that off. I did that. Check that off. A lot of times I think we enjoy the work that we're doing. We might enjoy going and meeting with that client. And so it doesn't register that we are working. But if you keep a list of it and you go in and check those off, it's like, okay, well, I did get some stuff done today or the last couple of days or whatever, and so that's one thing that I'm working on, is just keeping track of it better so that I recognize it and give myself credit a little bit, so.
Yeah, I really like that. You can also see that as a major success principle, because if at the end of the day you go, man, I feel like I didn't do anything, go look at your list and see everything that you did.
Yeah.
And you might not be able to put a dollar amount on all of that, but you filled your day with something. And I think it's even important to put on, built Legos with my 6-year-old. That's a win.
Everything is work.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I like that a lot.
And it's hard too, because in a job, like say at the fire department, you go and work a day at the fire department. It's like, okay, well, I worked 10 hours today.
Yeah.
Or whatever the number is. Well, if you really break it down into tasks, you might not have worked 10 hours that day. You might have worked 2 hours that day.
Yeah.
And now that's being honestly reflected as you're an entrepreneur.
Yep.
You're not chunking off work as just a time, hours per day. You're chunking it off in what tasks did I perform, or what value did I add? And so
if we were paid off of value?
It looks a lot different, because you might not give yourself credit for something, the phone calls today. How do I put a value on that?
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to today, but if that gets you to where you need to be on $1 million project, there was a lot of value there, but it's impossible to track it.
Yeah.
So it is hard going from the job mindset to the entrepreneur mindset of chunking off what actually work and action and that is. I don't know. It's something to think about.
Well, and it would be near impossible, if not impossible. It's like, maybe not a lot of things are impossible, let's say, but this might be. If you could evaluate every single minute of every single day and every single task and be putting it into monetary value, passive income, active income, love of my family, children. Someone needs to figure this out. How cool would that be? Yes, some app that is tracking everything that you do at all times, and watched over by the Ministry of Truth.
Yeah, no kidding.
But
it sounds like a social credit system.
Anonymous for myself, blockchain based. It would just be so interesting, because everything that we do plays into everything else that we do. How we do anything is how we do everything. So, if you're 100% focused on that kid playing Legos for that time, but then I can also come over and we can do a podcast and I'm 100% focused at this time. Like, it would just, it'd be very interesting. And that's something we could probably take some mental notes on. And what I like about what you do, writing your stuff down each day, is you kind of can, you could put off to the side some numbered value of like what your focus was on that. And, not saying monetary value.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could be, man, I can check that off.
How much did I execute, or how well did I do that?
Check that off on business. I can check this off on recreation.
Yeah.
Like, that's cool.
That would be interesting to track it, even in categories like you're talking. Yeah.
And what kind of balance are we living? And we've talked about balance before. I don't believe that balance in any given day or week or even month exists, but over a long period of time, I think my life is balanced.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's just, I think if you could do what you're doing and then categorize it, that'd be cool.
I'll have to see if I can figure out a way to do that.
Yeah. And
I don't know.
It comes down to categories. It's like, do I categorize each child, or is it just children in general? Or, is it family, or is it wife plus all kids? Like, it would all be totally individualized.
Well, and even like you're saying though, just having an overall idea and being conscious of that, am I fishing 90% of the time, and works 5% and families 2%? And well, that would be a good thing to know. If you can't recognize that on your own, that you're doing that, it would be a good thing to know. So you can go, oh, wait, I probably shouldn't be fishing 90% of the time. I probably can break that down to 85% and fit some other stuff in there.
Unless that 5% of work is producing that lifestyle of 90% of fishing that you want.
Yeah. That's
like,
true. That's the hard thing too, is figuring out the value of each thing, take for instance, like the fire department. I can think of a lot of days where, we would get a lot of our stuff done by noon, say.
Yep.
And then it's like, okay, what do we, work out another time today, and let's go wash the trucks another time and go through gear another time, or sometimes you just hang out.
Yeah.
But there's also value there if there's a call. Like there's
absolutely,
and so that's hard to, like just from the outside, it could be like, oh, well, you guys sat around all day and got paid for it, which is what we would get from people from time to time, or you guys are getting paid to sleep. Well, yeah, I can see maybe where that perception is, But what you're not thinking about is adding the value of, if an accident does happen, we are here ready to go.
They're ready to go. And morale is high enough that I actually give a crap about giving compressions and epinephrine and you know, doing the right thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, there's kind of, it's so hard to look at other people and value what work is, or how much work they're doing, or what value they're adding, because a lot of times we don't necessarily maybe know exactly. But
absolutely,
I think as an individual practice, it's very important to go through and say, okay, where am I spending time? Where am I spending thought, energy, and focus, and kind of go through that. I don't know.
Yeah, thoughts are a big one. I mean, you've talked about soundtracks a lot.
Yeah.
So I started listening to it finally. And where our thoughts go. And we know it, we say it, you know, where thoughts go, energy flows and all this stuff. But really, where are your thoughts all day long? What soundtracks are they playing? Is it success? Is it poverty? Is it political? I mean, if we're just following the political realm and we're just on Twitter all day long, it's going to be really hard to get outside of life and be successful. Yeah. And even if you are successful, it's going to feel very difficult, or it's going to be very difficult to feel successful when everything feels like you're losing. Yeah. Because you're just on Twitter all day long.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Especially if you're a white male.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I say that as a joke.
Yeah, it's all joking.
Yeah.
Yes. This is a comedy podcast.
We laugh at all of the things just because we can. Well, if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
That's true.
So that's it.
No, it's sadly, there's truth to it. You know, if in women's rights issues, sometimes they don't want males to have a say. And I don't know if there is male rights issues. I don't even know if that's a thing, but
of course.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
life is interesting. Life is hard, but life is fun. Life is ups, life is downs. And I mean, my takeaway from today is actually your list. I need to be better at listing what I'm doing, because I know I do stuff for every single one of our businesses every single day. But there are many days that I get to the end and I'm like, dang it. You know, because as an entrepreneur, you can't add monetary value to everything you're doing. But talking to that customer I've kept them as a customer.
Sure.
You know, talking to that
could be a $10,000 deal. I mean, you just never know.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my takeaway from today. I like that a lot.
Cool. Yeah, no, to me, I think that last stuff that we're talking about, just our thoughts and figuring out where our focus is. I can tell the last couple of weeks that I've, just been kind of let that go on cruise control and not really had focused time on, okay, what are my goals? What am I focused on? What am I, it's kind of more of that, just kind of let things float. And so,
I've seen your focus change.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Into just looking into some of that, and not in a bad way. This is in a totally good way.
Yeah.
Looking into products and services and that sort of thing.
I actually love that.
Dude, I've noticed that you love that, and I think it's way cool.
My wife every night's like, because every night my wife's like, are you on there looking again?
Like they just woke up.
It's fun, man. It is fun.
Yeah, it's cool.
So that has been a good focus in the last little bit. And that's been one of those things that, some of my other stuff is in management mode, kind of, sort of. And so it's like, hey, this is an exciting thing. Let's figure it out. And so that's been fun. That's been a good focus. And I'm excited to get that rolling.
It's cool. And it's tough to add a monetary value to now.
Yeah.
But later on, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
And you're enjoying it. That's what it's all about. Passion, value, writing your stuff down every day.
Yeah.
Write down what you've done.
I love it.
No, I love it too.
To do it more.
Well, me too. I'm going to do that. I've been trying to be better about journaling, but I'm a crappy journaler. Cause I'm like, I woke up today and then I went and did this, and I'm like writing it like my posterity is going to really care. So I won't write some stuff down because I'm like, well, I don't want to think about this. Or I don't want to think. And I actually read back to some journals in high school. I tried to make myself seem like such a ladies' man. Like I was just some like chubby, nerdy kid. And I'm like, I'm terrible. But I do the same thing now. It'd be so much better to actually write down, I woke up this morning and I gave my wife a kiss and I said thank you to her and I ate breakfast and it was this and this is how I felt about that breakfast,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I struggle with that too.
Yeah.
It is hard.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
But it's also good. I was listening to something the other day and I'm going to butcher it all and I don't know exactly how it all went down, but he was taking somebody in the scriptures and talking about how they had journaled somehow. I'm going to find this out so I can actually give a better story, but pretty much talked about how they reached their level of success as a prophet in the scriptures, all through journaling. It was in the Bible. I just don't remember. I don't probably read it as much as I should.
Yeah.
So, but journaling is so dang important. And what's cool, what you're doing, and I know we're kind of wrapping this up and I actually think you and I have a meeting with someone after this, but you are journaling. It's just a little different.
Yeah, that's true.
You're journaling every day. It's just not, I woke up this morning and I ate breakfast and
but you can do it that way too, because we both have, we've shared with each other things that we've written in the past that are coming true now.
Yeah.
And so that is like, I think however we express it, it is important to keep a record of it somehow. Well, maybe it doesn't matter, but it is, I think it matters, I guess, because it is incredible to look back at some of those things and be like, holy cow, I forgot that I wrote this.
Yeah.
This was what I was shooting for. And look what I'm doing today. Like you sent me a paragraph that was almost identical to the life that you're living now. And you had totally forgot about it.
Yeah.
So we're manifesting. No, what's that called? Projecting. What else?
Well, I mean, maybe both.
Yeah.
Like, cause
projecting that, I think.
Yeah. By writing it down and you're building a gap between your mental reality and actual reality. You're saying I can list, every day, I say every day, I try every day. I am a great and successful businessman.
Yeah.
I dress for success. I am successful or, on the spot, it's not going to happen. But I'm feeling healthy and great at 178, just that sort of thing. I'm trying to build in my mind that these are real, and then physical reality might be slightly different. So then my brain and body start to go, hey, we got to fill these gaps in. So then you start to see opportunities and things throughout life, and you can kind of move and manifest them into reality.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it.
And dressing for success has totally changed over the years, by the way. I thought it was suit and tie. It's being in shorts all day long.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I love it.
Yeah. Thanks for today. We'll chat more tomorrow and maybe we can just kind of dive deeper into this.
Yeah, I think so. I like, especially this stuff maybe tomorrow too. Like we talk about mindset so much, but there's some really good examples out there of how our mind, when we think about stuff or we write stuff down or we manifest it, our mind thinks that it doesn't know the difference between that and reality.
Yeah.
And so maybe we could dive some more into that, because I know that we have stuff that we've read and done that are along with that. So that'd be fun. I know we talk about that a lot, but it's
let's dive deeper into it tomorrow.
A pretty big success principle. So
let's
do it.
It's awesome. It might be the success principle.
I think you're probably right. It probably is.
And it probably ties into prayer and journaling and, it goes deep.
Meditation and maybe even psychedelics on the other side of it.
Oh, let's get into psychedelics tomorrow. Things we've never done, but we'll talk about.
Interesting stuff that we've heard lately. So cool.
Awesome. We'll see you tomorrow.
See ya.